Up next, we're joined by Jesse with Acuity for another maintainer update. Welcome, Jesse.
Thanks. Hi, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for being here for our inaugural ArgoCon. My name is Jesse Suen. I am an Argo project lead and co-founder of Acuity.io. And I've been working on the Argo project since Platix days, and so today is a pretty special day for me. Today I'll be giving a maintainer update about Argo CD and rollouts and what you can expect to see in the coming year. So first, let's start by taking a look back at 2021 and some statistics and milestones. In terms of project activity, this year we've continued to maintain a really healthy commit activity rate across a large number of contributors. And when I compare this to 2020, the numbers are even if not better than the year before. And also keep in mind, these numbers are only counting the Argo CD and rollout repos, but there has been a lot of additional activity happening in the ecosystem projects. Taking a look at the GitHub stars, both CD and rollouts gained an impressive increase in percentage of stargazers. But the statistic that we think is most interesting and telling is the number of monthly visitors to our website, specifically our documentation, which you can see in this graph below. The blue visitors are the visitors this year, and the orange line is from last year. And this is showing that we're basically doubling the number of visitors to our website year over year. And I interpret this as like we're gaining actual users who are really using the product. But hopefully it doesn't mean that Argo is just getting harder and harder to use and people are using the doc site to figure it out. In terms of milestones, for the Argo Rollouts project, it was quite a banner year for us. Earlier this year, we reached the 1.0 milestone, and that just means we feel the project is production quality. We're confident in its stability and maturity. But we've also added a really bunch of great features, including like a UI dashboard, which you can access using either the CLI, or you can run it actually as a service in your cluster. There's a alternative way you can run rollouts, which we call workload references. And the idea behind this is that instead of replacing your deployment object, you can reference something existing. And this just provides a different way for users to maybe transition to rollouts, give it a try, and not have to affect their existing service. Rollouts has added a lot better Kubernetes events and metrics, and this helps users understand what's actually happening during the course of a rollout, such as when an update started, when steps are completing, or if a rollout aborted. And to go along with that feature, you can now send notifications about any of these events using the notification engine, and we get all these integrations for free that Argo CD notifications has. There's a lot of additional integrations, such as the emissary ingress, AWS CloudWatch for metrics, and also the Graphite app for metrics. And finally, there was a ton of improvements around Argo's integration with Istio. Argo CD had 3 releases this year, including the 2.0 release, and that included a bunch of great new UI features, such as the pod view, as well as multi-pod log streaming. But with every Argo CD release that we've done, we're actually improving the performance of the software. So Argo CD is actually getting faster and faster every time you upgrade because of all the optimizations that we're figuring out along the way. There's a lighter weight way to run Argo CD, which we call Argo CD Core. And with this mode, you're only running the core components of CD, which is namely the application controller, Redis for caching, and the repo server. And so the API server UI is actually optional, but you can still access it if you are running the CLI locally. You can run up a localhost dashboard to get to the UI. And we think this is a great way to run Argo CD if you want to run it at the edge, or you just don't need to expose the UI. And last but not least, but this year we really started expanding the Argo CD ecosystem with the development with all these add-ons, including really quickly the app set controller to help you manage many applications, Argo CD notifications to get notified about interesting application events, the image updater, which lets you write back changes based on Docker push events, and finally the Argo CD extensions, which allow new visualizations of custom resources in the Argo CD UI. And if you haven't been keeping up, we're about to release Argo CD 2.2. And one of the major highlights of this release is that there's a new, better way for operators to plug in their own configuration management tooling. And if you've ever tried using the 1.0 feature of config management plugins, you'll know it's a little bit clunky to configure. And so we improved this so that plugins are really just container images built with the necessary tooling for your configuration management. And these container images will then run as sidecars to the repo server. And whenever the repo server needs to render manifests using your toolchain, they'll just call out to that sidecar. The second improvement is that we're making Argo CD more self-service for developers. And before 2.2, end users would have to coordinate with the Argo CD operator whenever the clusters need to get registered or repositories needed to get registered. But with 2.2, it's now possible to enable them to do more self-service in case you want to spread the responsibility. And finally, one issue we've had for some time is the way Argo CD was tracking resources, which was using a label. And this had some limitations in label length, which is like Kubernetes limitation. There was a conflict in like Helm also using that same label. And so we're moving toward a model where we have this annotation to keep track of what resources are part of the application. And this will be a better option to use for tracking resources. All right, so let's see what we have in store for 2022. Going back to rollouts, one thing that we've kind of realized is that it takes a lot for organizations to get to that final state of doing progressive delivery. And we think we can make this a lot easier, which I call Argo Rollouts enablement. And one feature along those lines, which you can look forward to in the next Rollouts 1.2 release, is the ability to dry run your analysis. Using this feature, you can perform analysis as part of your update, but its result, its success and failure is not actually going to abort your rollout. It's just kind of like a practice run to see what your analysis would have done, and so lets you fine tune it before turning it on. The second thing I think we could do better is providing users with a catalog of analysis templates that work with the popular ingress controllers and service meshes. So for example, we could provide templates that measure the golden signals and have pre-canned queries that work with the Istio or Linkerd telemetry. Third, the rollout documentation today is more like a reference manual and more focused on explaining individual features. And there's no comprehensive guide of best practices and patterns and strategies on how to implement progressive delivery at an organization. I think some literature around that would be helpful. And finally, we could use some better tooling to help users migrate to rollouts. For example, one idea that's been floating around is maybe we have a conversion utility built into the plugin, which help convert manifests into rollout manifests. In terms of features, something which has been on our wish list for a long time is leveraging a more advanced traffic shaping, like header-based traffic splitting or shadow trafficking. But one development in particular which excites me is the upcoming Kubernetes Gateway API, which is often referred to as Kubernetes Ingress v2. And the problem is today, anytime we want to support a new ingress controller or mesh, we have to implement a vendor-specific integration. And this requires us to understand their specific CRDs. But with the Kubernetes Gateway API, there will now be a standard API specification that vendors implement. And the idea is that we'll only need to implement the integration to the Gateway API and then automatically get for free support for all the meshes and controllers that support that, such as Contour, Traffic, Glue, Console. And these are all projects which are supporting this API. On the Argo CD front, earlier I mentioned all the ecosystem add-ons that are available. But today the problem is that it's still a burden on the operator to correctly piece together all of these projects into their installation. And now that these projects are beginning to mature, it's now time to start thinking about how to merge these into the Argo CD upstream. So either they're part of the default installation, just part of Argo CD core, or at least they're easily enabled so that operators don't have to worry about compatibility. So I've been with the Argo project for 4 years now, and Argo has basically had the same kind of look and feel for those 4 years, and it's pretty due for a UI refresh. And so right now there's a lot of effort happening right now on updating the component libraries to something more modern. And so you can look forward to kind of a refresh in the look and feel. In terms of usability of Argo CD, I could probably list dozens of things which I think could be improved, but here are some highlights based on some recent discussions we've been having amongst the maintainers. The first is we want to improve the self-service experience for organizations who want to manage applications in their workflow namespace as opposed to the control plane. And also using things like impersonation to, instead of Kubernetes, Argo CD RBAC to improve our security. We could do a better job of bootstrapping clusters and have deploying applications that depend on each other. And finally, now that server-side apply is available, Argo CD in the future will be able to leverage some of that information to either preserve changes that other controllers are making to the resources or ignore those changes as diffs inside Argo CD. And so now we get to some of the even more forward-thinking looking things which I'm personally excited about. As I mentioned earlier, we have these mechanisms to extend Argo CD and start customizing your installation. And starting with the V2 config management plugins, I really think we can start building this ecosystem and catalog of Argo CD plugins, which can be then shared amongst the community. So maybe there'll be a Grafana Tonka config management plugin that is maintained by the Grafana team, and we think also the same could happen for resource extensions. Today we have this reference implementation for the Argo Rollouts UI, but there's nothing stopping the community to start developing these new UI extensions for all other kinds of custom resources. And so if you want to get involved in the Argo project, a really great way would be to start contributing plugins to the ecosystem. Okay, and this is just, I think there's a lot more potential we can do with extensibility. And for example, this is just, we want to do things like sidebar extensions if you want to extend the UI in different ways, or even application level UI extensions, or maybe even just deep linking to specifics about the infrastructure. All right, so I think we're about time. And I'll stick around in the chat for questions. Thanks.
Yeah, that was great, Jesse. And there are a lot of questions for you if you go back to the general chat or meet them in the CNCF Slack channels. If you haven't already filled out the survey and give feedback to us so we can start building 22 and understand how you're using Argo, please do that now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.